Alright.
Alright, my beloved bastards, here is Ultimate Party Creation Guide. I already did this, how to create your party and so on, but that video is old. I mean old, it's when the game released. At that time I did not know as much as I do know now, which is obvious. You never know at the beginning as much as you know later. So here is the updated video of that one, where I'm going to cover some party combinations that are extremely good and how to even focus on bringing up your party, what you should do. First, you need to decide what kind of a party you want to create. There are 3 party types that are efficient. One is full physical damage party, second one is full magical damage party, third one is mixed damage party. Mixed damage party meaning there are 2 physical and 2 magical damage dealers in that party. Don't go with 3 people doing one type of damage and the 4th one doing another type, it's not gonna work. That guy will be most of the time useless. So how to know what type of damage you'll be doing? Depends on the weapon that you're wielding and also depends on skills from combat abilities. Strength and finesse based weapons will do physical damage. Some of them also have bonus elemental damage, but that damage is never as high as the physical one, so it's always primary a physical damage. That goes for auto attacks, obviously. Skills and spells are different story. Intelligence based weapons always do magical damage. Magical damage means you're gonna damage enemies' magical armor. Every enemy's got physical and magical armor. There are 3 enemy archetypes in the game: strength, finesse and intelligence based ones. Strength ones will have high physical armor, so it's good to focus them with magic attacks that will inflict damage on their magical armor. Finesse based characters have about balanced physical and magical armor, so it's up to you with who you want to focus them. Intelligence based characters have low physical armor, but they have high magical armor, so it's good for your warriors to be in their face and bash their heads in. That's why you should know immediately what kind of party you want to have. On classic mode, mistakes during builds will be tolerated, but on tactician you're gonna have to have a proper party setup to be able to tackle some of the game's nasty fights. As for the rest of these attributes, constitution is generally good for some kind of a tank. As you progress through the game, you're gonna have to put some points into memory as well. More skills and spells you have, the better your chance of getting that victory. Wits are important because it gives you critical chance and initiative. Initiative is an underrated stat, because if you have high initiative party that also has got high critical chance, you can deal with some of the enemies during the first turn, and when you can immediately kill 1 or 2 enemies during the first round, the rest of the fight will be much easier. So to level your characters properly throughout the game, you need to choose one of these attributes and focus them throughout the game. Don't split points across these 3 attributes, because that means you're going to split damage. If you, for example, choose some kind of a battle mage preset, they usually tell you that you should put strength and intelligence. That's not a good thing. You'll not be able to max out your damage as you would like it to. Stick with one attribute and that damage type. There's respect mirror attacked too, so don't panic if you made a mistake. You'll be able to use respect mirror whenever you want. The attribute that you pick should be the one you will focus on throughout Forge and Hollow Marshes through the first region. Constitution is also very helpful there, so that you buff your character slightly, but usually I would suggest getting your primary attribute that deals damage to max as possible. When you start getting gear that will give you wits and that will give you direct critical chance increase, then it's time to start focusing some other things. Critical chance means you have more chance to do a critical hit. Critical hit damage depends on the critical multiplier. That can be increased with Scoundrel and Two-Handed. During the first region, don't focus too much on wits. You can focus with some specific classes. I will always point it out in my builds when wits should be focused in the first region, with what type of class, but later on wits becomes very important. In the end, you'll max out one of these three stats depending on what your character is based on, and wits will be high enough. Gear technically doesn't matter that much. If you're intelligence-based character and you're doing magic damage, you can wear strength-based gear. The only thing that you need is 14 into strength, and that means you'll be able to wear throughout the whole game strength-based armor if you wanted to. The only difference between the gear is this. If you wear strength-based armor, it's usually gonna give you some buffs to strength attribute. Usually those bonuses come from chest piece and helmet. With strength-based armor, you're gonna have higher physical armor. With intelligence-based armor, you're gonna have higher magical armor. With strength-based gear, you're gonna have higher physical armor. With intelligence-based gear, you're gonna have higher magical armor. To wear all types of intelligence gear, you need to have 14 into intelligence. Same goes for finesse. You need to have 14 into finesse to wear finesse-based gear throughout the game. Finesse armor gives you about equal amount of physical and magical armor. So it's completely up to you how you want to configure your character. Usually if someone is in close combat, it's better to have higher physical armor because you'll be receiving a lot of physical damage from enemy warriors since they are gonna clash mostly at those front lines, or at least the finesse-based armor. But ultimately it's up to you how you want to configure your own character. Depending on what kind of abilities you choose, you'll have a couple of skills to choose from at the beginning of the game from these particular abilities. I already covered that in how to build your party video, so I don't want to go through that all over again. But what I'm going to do here is give you a rundown of what every combat ability does, what's its damage focus, and also going to cover some weapons and defense categories too. Warfare is the best combat ability for any kind of physical damage dealer. That means rogues with daggers, that means rangers, warriors, any kind of spell also or skill that does physical damage will be increased with warfare. Necromancer spells as well are increased by warfare ability. Difference between warfare and other abilities is that it's the only ability in the game where this bonus damage is actually multiplicative when it goes in the final account. All other bonuses to your damage from other trees are added. They are not multiplicative. That's why warfare is a must for any physical damage character. Warfare also increases the damage from necromancer spells. Necromancer spells like Decaying Touch are increased by intelligence and they do physical damage. That is a strange combination but really cool and unique, and that's why Necromancer can be applied to many cool builds. As it does physical damage, its physical damage will actually be increased by warfare stat. I've now put 1 point into warfare, and now you can see immediately that the damage from Decaying Touch has been increased. It was 6 to 7, now it's 7 to 8. The same goes for Mosquito Swarm and Infect. Those are the offensive necromancer spells that you will get throughout the game. So now we covered warfare. It's a must for rogues, rangers, warriors, whatever. Huntsman increases all damage dealt when attacking from high ground. That also means magical damage. So every skill, every spell, every auto attack that's got a projectile, that's bow, crossbows, wands, and Staff of Magus skill with staves, will have its damage increased from high ground by a certain percentage from Huntsman combat ability. Scoundrel increases your critical multiplier. That means when you score a critical hit, the damage will be higher by the amount of points you have into Scoundrel or two-handed combat ability, because both of these increase critical multiplier. Every critical hit that you score with any type of attack will be increased with Scoundrel. Pyrokinetic will directly increase your fire damage. That doesn't only mean that it's going to increase damage from your spells. No, it means that if you have, for example, wands that have fire as their element, then it's going to increase the damage from those wands as well. Same goes with staff. If you have fire-based staff, it's going to increase its damage. If you have strength-based weapon that does physical damage, but it's got bonus elemental damage fire, Pyrokinetic will increase that bonus elemental damage too. Same goes with Hydrosophist, Aeroturge, Geomancer. All of these combat abilities will give you magical damage spells, plus some restorative spells like Restoration, Armor of Frost, Fortify, and so on. Good combinations here are Pyrokinetic and Geomancer, because Geomancer will usually create oil surface and you can ignite it for additional damage with pyrokinetic abilities. Hydrosophist and Aeroturge are also combined very well together, because with Hydrosophist you can summon rain, and if enemy is being shocked by Aeroturge spell, then that enemy will be stunned for one turn. Every magic combat ability, Pyrokinetic, Hydro, Aero, and Geo, have special status effects that they will inflict upon an enemy. With pyrokinetic skills, you will almost always inflict burning. Burning does smaller amount of damage over 2 turns. So every turn when the character is inflicted by burning, he's gonna receive some burning damage. Hydro combat ability has got a lot to offer in terms of restoration spells and in restoring magical armor. Cool thing about Hydro is that you can create frozen surface by casting rain or blood and then using global cooling. On frozen surface, there's always a chance an enemy will be knocked down. There's also a chance you will be knocked down too, but you can prevent that by simply combining boots with nails. So just press G on your keyboard and combine the boots that you're wearing with nails. That means you won't sleep ever on ice. It's one of my favorite combat abilities, to be honest, simply because you can create so much ice surface that the enemies will have so much trouble getting to you. Aeroturge combat ability might be, in my opinion, the most impressive one. It can stun easily and it can also deal insane amount of damage. The only issue with this is that it can create some nasty things for your party as well. Skills like Superconductor can damage your own party members, so you need to be careful with that. But it can do insane amount of damage. I'm mostly here covering starting abilities and abilities that you're going to get throughout the first region. Later on you're going to get ultimate abilities, but I don't want to cover that here. It would be a waste of time since you will be able to respec later and you can test it all for yourself. You don't need to panic about creating wrong build or something like that. You'll have plenty of chance to test everything and respec multiple times and so on. When you apply shock on someone, and that's what most of these arrow spells do, enemy will get debuffs to their, I believe it's action point number and some other debuffs. I forgot what shocked does, but anyway, when they have shocked status and then you summon a rain on them, or if you do another attack that shocks enemies, you will apply stunned. Stunned means enemy will not do anything for one turn. Geomancer skill tree is based on restoring your physical armor with Fortify spell, which is one of the spells that you simply need to have. Same as Armor of Frost from Hydro tree. Status effects that Geomancer apply are usually something like slowed, crippled. Basically, it slows down enemies in extreme fashion. There's also an earthquake spell that can knock down enemies. Geomancer combat ability will also grant you poison spells. Poison is a specific elemental damage. It's not directly related to earth, because enemies that are resistant to earth doesn't mean they will be resistant to poison, and vice versa. You should always have one party member that is focused on healing physical and magical armor. So to get that, just pump points into Hydro and Geo, because skills like Fortify, Restoration and Armor of Frost do not scale from intelligence. They only scale from amount of points that you have in Hydro and Geo. Read the tooltips. Tooltips will tell you a lot of things. For example, for Hail Strike here, it says damage is based on your level and receives bonus from intelligence. Yes, but it also receives bonus from Hydro Sophist. Not only from your level and intelligence, but also receives bonus damage from the number of Hydro Sophist points that you have. As it clearly says in the tooltip, water attacks will deal 5% more damage. And you also get 5% more vitality healed with restoration spells and plus 5% magic armor from skills and potions. So read the tooltips, it will tell you the whole bloody story. Same goes with Fossil Strike, for example. Fossil Strike creates an all surface. It does earth damage is an elemental damage, magic damage, and damage is based on level and receives bonus from intelligence. And it also receives bonus from Geomancy tree, as it says clearly in the tooltip. Same goes for poison based attacks. So combining these two abilities on one party member is very efficient way of getting everything that you need to heal your whole party. Necromancer combat ability is rather special. Most of the offensive spells here scale with intelligence, but they do physical damage. And that's why Warfare and Necromancer will always come together nicely. Warfare affects the damage of Necromancer offensive abilities. Putting points into Necromancer combat ability means that you will heal for percentage of damage dealt. That goes for every type of attack, so I mean auto attack, spells, skills, whatever. Whenever you do damage, you're gonna heal for a certain percentage, depending on how many points you have into Necromancer combat ability. Cool combo that you can immediately do with Necromancer combat ability is Decaying Touch and Bloodsucker. Decaying Touch puts decay on an enemy. When enemy is decayed, they cannot heal, and from usual sources that would otherwise restore their health, they will now take damage. If they are standing in blood, then you can use Decaying Touch to first decay them and then Bloodsucker on them. It will not heal them, it will actually damage them. It all depends in how much blood they are standing. More blood they are standing in, the bigger the damage will be. Summoning is one of the most flexible combat abilities in the game. It's usually best served as support ability because you can combine it with lots of other stuff. Most important thing about summoning ability is that you can summon your incarnate on different types of surfaces. If you summon incarnate on, for example, fire, then it will become fire infused, so it will now do fire damage. If you summon incarnate on blood surface, then it will do physical damage. If you summon him on normal clear ground, it will also do physical damage. Because of that, summoning is such a flexible combat ability. And you can build it in any way possible. So I don't even want to bother with this anymore explaining you, because I did numerous builds for Summoner, and it's gonna help you if you watch those builds now that you understand some of the things, how they function. Polymorph is similar to Summoning because it's really as flexible as Summoning too. Mostly it will give you some strange abilities like Chicken Claw, which is one of the best abilities in the game. No one is immune to Chicken Claw. So when person does not have any more physical armor, then you do Chicken Claw and they will become chicken for 2 turns, which means they will not do anything, just run away or whatever. Some other skills that you can get from Polymorph ability at the beginning of the game are Chameleon Cloak, Tentacle Lash, and some of these abilities scale with different types of things. For example, Tentacle Lash scales with Strength. Then again, you're gonna receive later skill called Flay Skin that is resisted by magical armor. This one is resisted by physical armor. So it's kinda a complex one, but it can suit both playstyles. In my opinion, it's much better in physical damage party, mostly because of Chicken Claw and Tentacle Lash. Tentacle Lash sets atrophy for 1 turn. It is also resisted by physical armor. When enemy is atrophied, then they cannot attack for 1 turn. They cannot use weapons. There are also other cool abilities from Polymorph Tree, like Spread Your Wings, where you float above the surface and you can use flight to cover long distances. Polymorph works best with finesse or strength based characters. One more thing I forgot to mention is that warfare skills, most of them anyway, scale depending on the type of weapon that you're using. If you can see now, Battle Stomp and Crippling Blow will scale from basic attack and receive bonus from intelligence. Why intelligence? Because this guy over here, actually girl, over here is wielding dual wands. Dual wands scale of intelligence. So warfare abilities will change its bonus depending on the type of weapon that you have. If we change preset to something else, for example, Rogue, and I'm gonna put 1 point into warfare, then you see now it scales from finesse. Keep that in mind, that you can combine warfare with lots of stuff. Weapon combat abilities are based on simply buffing your damage and gives you another bonus depending on the type of weapon that you're wielding. They will not grant you any skills. There are no skills, for example, single-handed, two-handed range and dual wielding. As you can see, nothing changed. We still have warfare ability. They are only there to buff you. You're only gonna get skills and spells from these skills over here, while weapons only affect the weapon that you're wielding and some other stuff. Single-handed is usually the worst thing that you can get. Accuracy is not needed that much, and you can also get accuracy through other means like runes and gear. So if you are using someone that does single-handed weapon like tank, for example, single-handed and shield, I would not put any points into this. Dual wielding is second worst here because it gives you direct damage boost for dual wielded weapons, but the problem is it gives you dodging, and it gives you also 1% only per point invested. So to have a high amount of dodging, you're still gonna have to focus it through gear and talent. In most cases this is not worth it, but in some cases it might be useful. Problem is also that AoE spells, that means area of effect, spells that, for example, like Fireball, Explode, cannot be dodged, no matter how high your dodge rating is. There are a lot of AoE spells in the game, and that's why I feel like dual wielding is mostly mediocre weapon compatibility. Then we have ranged. It increases damage and critical chance when using bows and crossbows. Critical chance works with spells too, so when you increase your critical chance, that means your spells and any other types of attacks besides normal auto attacks with bows and crossbows will get the increased critical chance. So it's probably second best ability here out of all of these, while two-handed is by far the best. It will increase damage from two-handed melee weapons like swords, axes, maces, spear or staves, and it can be combined in so many ways, and it is the most used weapon compatibility. Reason is plus 5% critical multiplier. Plus 5% critical multiplier goes across board, that means spells, skills and everything else will benefit from it. While the damage will only be increased with your auto attacks, critical multiplier will affect everything, and that's why it's the best weapon compatibility. So if you have two-handed weapon, I would definitely suggest when you start building your crit chance that you invest points into two-handed. But only when you have higher enough crit chance, otherwise this won't give you anything. For example, in first region, Forge and Hollow Marshes, two-handed is not needed at all, almost. It's better to invest into warfare if you're dealing physical damage. From defense, all three are good, but in party you're probably gonna focus more on these things than on defense. One thing that I can tell you here is that leadership should be used on the tankiest character. If you have any kind of tanky character in the game that you know it can survive a lot of hits, then put leadership on him or her. That way it will project bonuses in 5-meter radius to other allies, especially if you have other melee characters with you. It's extremely useful in that case. If you do not have any melee characters besides your tank, then it's not useful at all. Reason is simple. The one that is wielding leadership ability will not get its bonuses. Only the others will. It is also really cool if you use that with Summoner, because your totems and your incarnates, Bone Widows, whatever, will benefit from leadership bonuses. Retribution reflects some of the damage you receive. It's pretty much useless at lower levels, but at highest level it can be extremely good, especially with Lone Wolf. If you go 20 points into Retribution, so you reflect then 100% of damage received. That is awesome. Perseverance restores magic armor if you get frozen or stunned, and restores physical armor after you get knocked down or petrified. That basically means that you can't be crowd controlled constantly. Well, it should be like that, but Perseverance will not help you in hard difficulties, even if you put a lot of points into it. Problem is that the damage on Tactician and other difficulty is so high that you cannot restore so much armor to prevent you from being knocked down again or frozen again or whatever. In classic mode, it can be used effectively. In general, good skills for any physical damage-based build are Warfare, Scoundrel, Polymorph, Summoning is good for everything, Necromancer, Two-Handed. These are fantastic for every physical damage-based character. For every magical damage-based character, basically every spell tree here, but don't go for all of them. That's really hard to manage and it can be chaotic. So anyway, these are your basics. Then Scoundrel as well, that will increase critical multiplier. Huntsman 2 is good because it will increase damage from all the spells that you're doing from the high ground. And also Two-Handed if you are wielding a staff. If you're wielding a staff, then you don't need Scoundrel. Just dump points into Two-Handed. That will increase the damage with the staff and also increase critical multiplier for spells and auto attacks with the staff. If you're wearing wands, then I would go, instead of dual wield, something like Scoundrel to increase critical multiplier. This is just general direction how to build things. No point in getting into deeper mechanics here because I have numerous builds that explain everything that needs to be explained there. But I'm just giving you here an overall picture on what you should be focusing on with physical and magical damage. I'll now cover talents that are good in the beginning of the game and that are good later on in the game. At the beginning of the game, talents like the Pawn for Rogue or Executioner or Opportunist are very useful. Opportunist can only be used with melee weapons. That means any strength based weapon, any finesse based weapon, and staves. You cannot use Opportunist with wands, bows and crossbows. Comeback Kid can be especially useful at the beginning of the game if you're struggling with combat and if you're still learning stuff. All skilled up bigger and better from level 2 are something I would encourage you to use, because during the first region you're gonna need all the buffs that you can get, and later on when you get to Driftwood and Respec Mirror you can remove those, because you'll be pretty much alright regarding attributes and combat abilities. Living Armor is also a good choice. It will restore 35% to your magic armor of all healing done. This also works with Necromancy. So if you heal from an auto attack, 35% of that heal will go to magic armor. It only works when you damage enemies' health. It does not work when you damage enemies' physical or magical armor. So these are some of the talents that I would recommend for first region. For the rest of the game, I'll now cover all the talents that are really good. Elemental Affinity is a must for any kind of mage, because if you're standing, for example, in a fire, then all fire spells that you can cast will cost 1 less action point. Glass Cannon is a risky ability that is best used early in the game. Later on, enemies will destroy you with this, so I would not suggest that from mid-game to the end game. I would definitely suggest that though throughout the first region and second region, but only on ranged characters. With that, I would also put Stench on those same characters, because that way melee opponents will find you less attractive in combat. They will focus on someone else. Guerrilla is good with rangers because they can initiate combat from far away. Sometimes these rangers can do insane amount of damage, maybe even one shot an enemy. That's huge advantage at the beginning of the combat. Hothead is good later on. Forget about it throughout the first region. It's only good when you start getting some critical chance boosts through wits and gear. Living armor already covered, very good throughout the game. Lone Wolf is only good if you have 1 or 2 party members. Opportunist, as we already explained, is good throughout the game. Picture of Health is only good later on when you have lots of points into warfare, if you have a warfare based character. Savage Sortilege is extremely important for any type of mage because it gives magical skills chance to critical hit. That is huge. That can lead to some insane damage. And it also affects, for example, Bouncing Shield. When you do Bouncing Shield attack, that is extremely powerful, it's a warfare ability. It cannot crit without Savage Sortilege. Stench, extremely useful on weaker characters that don't have a lot of constitution, physical or magical armor. And sometimes Walk It Off can be extremely useful. But you should have options to remove negative status effects. Honestly, Duck Duck Goose sounds good, but if person is using Huntsman, then you don't really need it. Maybe it can be good on a staff wielding mage that likes to be in a melee combat, but that's about it. Most of the times you'll have some kind of a mobility skill or spell that will let you cover lots of distance quickly. A Mental Ranger means that you'll be doing bonus elemental damage depending on the surface your target is standing in. So if it's standing in blood, you'll do bonus physical damage. If it's standing in fire, you'll do bonus fire damage. If it's standing in water, then you're going to do bonus water damage. It can be good in mixed damage parties. Well, that's about it from talents, and now we've covered everything, every single attribute. I hope this video helped you out. In next video I'm gonna cover best party combinations for starters. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. Special thanks to my patrons, and see you all soon.
Toodaloo, motherfucker!